Welcome back to the channel, boys. Fabloonski's coming at you next with its hybrid Harbinger Trickster build. Before I get into it, finally guys, my tattoo is complete. Right now you guys are seeing the full thing. I mean, I have to go back for like minor touch-ups, but this is pretty much it. Pain is my favorite character in Naruto, so I had to get my boy tatted on me. I love his arc, I love his character, I love everything about him. So this is my tattoo. Let me know what you guys think. It was incredibly painful. The first session was like 7 hours. Second session was about 4.5 hours, I would say. Total of like $700, so it came up pretty nice. I'm really happy with it, and we're gonna keep adding to it. So this is just the first part. We're gonna go up my shoulder more, but I gotta save my money first and I gotta recover because this shit was excruciatingly painful. Like I can't even explain it. When he got near my elbow, I thought I was gonna die. It was so painful. But anyways, I'm gonna post this on my Instagram, Fabloonskis, or Fat_Bloonskis. I'll probably put it on Twitter as well, so if you want to look at it maybe in closer detail, or you can even just pause the video, but I'll post it on my social media so you guys can check it out as well. But alright, on to the build. So like I said in the beginning of the video, this is a hybrid build, but it's mainly focused on Harbinger, or at least that's my main focus, even though I have about equal parts in the assassin skill tree and equal skill points in the Harbinger skill tree. But like I said, I want this to be kind of a hybrid tank, a little bit of weapon damage here and there. So let me go ahead and break it down. So of course we got some skill cooldown because I love using my skills a lot, but some of the main nodes, I guess, or skill tree perks or whatever, we got every time a disruptive firepower, activation of deception skills increases your weapon damage by 35% for 8 seconds. I'm using time rift, so as you guys can see, effective skills, time rift is a part of this. And then we also got Scion of Power. When your damage skill ends, increase your weapon damage by 35% for 8 seconds. I'm using the temporal blade, so as you guys can see, this is affected by that. And then we also got Outrider Executioner. Activating a movement skill increases your weapon damage by 35%. I'm using Hunt the Prey. It's one of the active skills. So pretty much every time I use an ability, I'm getting a 35% buff to my weapon damage. In the Harbinger skill tree, we got some more skill cooldown reduction because I love my ability spam. But the main focus of this skill tree is Disruption Shield. Every activation of deception skills grants you 20% shield. Now my time rift ability is on a pretty short cooldown. I mean, of course it's not as short as it could possibly be, but I think it's around maybe like 9.6, I think 9.6 seconds. I'll show you in a second. So pretty much every time I use that ability, I get 20% shields. Now I have some mods that allow me to get even more shields on my weapon, but for right now, every time I use that skill, 20% shields is going to increase my tankiness, allow me to survive a lot longer. Plus those enemies, whenever you use time rift, they get slowed, they get lifted in the air, so it allows you to get away or just to kill them, because I have some other mods that weaken them and stuff, or I guess inflict invulnerability. So either I can just kill them and get some shields that way, or I can run away, get to safety, get my health back, and kill them from a distance. So it allows for a lot of outplays and a lot of safety nets that you wouldn't have otherwise. Now, since I'm going to be generating so many shields, I have to have some perks or skill nodes that are going to allow me to keep my shields active for longer, which is why I have shields timeline. Decrease your shield degradation rate by 30%. I have 2 of those. So my shield degradation rate is 60%, sorry. So even between encounters, I can kind of carry my shields from the last encounter to the next encounter, which is really nice because you want to have your shields active as much as possible, especially with some of the mods I have on some of my gear and weapons. My shield's active, I'm going to be able to do extra damage. So I'll get to that in a second. Now, even though I already mentioned my skills and what skills I'm going to use, let me just go over them really quick. I'm using Hunt the Prey. Pretty much you teleport behind the enemy you're aiming at, and you get a small little bonus of shields, and you're behind them. I think it slows them for like half a second or a second or 2, I don't know, but pretty much this allows me to get around the map very easily. And it also procs at a weapon damage buff. We're using Time Rift. You shoot out like this wave from your hand, and it like lifts up the enemies in the air. And I have some mods that also inflict vulnerability. So not only are they getting weakness because it's intrinsic to the skill, I also inflict vulnerability. And then we're using Temporal Blade. This is how I'm going to do some nice burst damage. I can also slow them down. It's a very nice ability. It's probably my favorite one out of, I don't know if it's my favorite one. It's my favorite damage ability for sure. Out of all the skills, I'm not too sure yet. I got to experiment a little bit more. But my favorite damage ability is definitely Temporal Blade. So I feel like I got to say this in every one of my videos, but my builds, I'm not very far in the end game. As you guys can see, my average item level is only 35 with the Trickster. I mean, I'm playing all the classes. I'm trying to see which one's the best and what I like here and there, and I just want to make different builds for all kinds of situations. So right now this build is for anyone, you know, around my level 35 and whatever, and I'm pretty sure this build will scale up. It's kind of like a tanky crowd control build, so I think this will be fine in some of the higher tiers, but for right now this is perfect. This is what I've been using and I've been having a lot of fun. It's helping me a lot in some of the tiers because I'm able to go up pretty fast, I'm able to stay alive, I'm able to crowd control, and I get nice weapon damage buffs. So honestly, I think this build is perfectly fine, even though it's not the most min-max, because as you guys can see, if I could have even more cooldown reduction, I would, but right now I have 15.8%, which is still pretty nice, but you can probably get this up to like around 30, and if I can do that, this build would be even better. So let's start with our weapons, even though they're not that important to this build. Right now we're using an assault rifle. We got legendary minefield, critical shots spawn explosives around your target, each dealing 4,953 damage in a 5-meter radius. This is a fantastic mod. I absolutely love this. It helps pretty much ad clear. It's a pretty big radius, even though 5 meters sounds kind of small. It's not that small. It's not as small as you would think it would be. So 4,000, well, pretty much 5,000 damage every 3 seconds for landing headshots. You can do boss damage, you can do crowd control or ad clear, I guess you can say. But then the second perk is improved stiffening. Shots inflict slow on enemies. I would like for this to be another damage perk or just something else because I can already inflict slow with my abilities. But this is the way this weapon rolled and it was the best weapon I had, so figured I would just use it. My secondary and my pistol don't really matter because I'm just using them to buff up my average item level. So I have these at level 37. I can probably even increase that a little bit more. I don't really ever switch to my weapons, my secondary or sidearm, because I would just rather go to the restock and use that. But I mean, hey, if you want to use your secondary, go ahead. But for this build, really is not important. So let's go ahead and start with the helmet. The first mod I have on it is Geiger's Wave. Time Rift. Every enemy affected by this wave receives vulnerability status. So what vulnerable does is it allows them to take, or what is it? It inflicts a 25% damage debuff, or rather they take 25% more damage. So every enemy takes 25% more damage. You can put this on bosses, you can put this on a bunch of enemies that are rushing towards you and just completely nuke them and wipe them out. It is a fantastic ability, or fantastic mod rather. Now my second mod is Shield Zap. When your shield is active, it spawns an electric shock around you, dealing 4,700 damage to 2 enemies within 5-meter radius every 5 seconds. So this is why I say I want to keep my shields up as much as possible. It's going to allow me to do more damage. So as I'm getting swarmed, this is going to release shockwaves. I feel like a lightning god. Keep shocking all these enemies with all this lightning, doing some pretty decent damage, and it pretty much just keeps me cool. It keeps me clear of the ads, because if the enemies start rushing me, I can just, you know, use my weapon or melee them or use my temporal blade. Since they're already taking damage from the shield, they're going to be pretty easy cleanup. So it pretty much gives me like a little bit extra space to work. So moving on to my chest piece, the first mod I have is Cut Loose. Reduce the skill's cooldown by 20%. So temporal blade has a 20% skill cooldown reduction. And then the second mod is Plate Dodge. Rolling increases your armor by 5,600 for 5 seconds. I'm going to be dodging a lot, or rolling a lot I should say, so having this is going to increase my tankiness, plus being able to use temporal blade more often is always nice. Onto my legs, the first mod I have is Slasher Temporal Blade. This skill can be activated one more time before triggering cooldown, which is nice because this adds to my burst damage with that ability. Having 2 activations is amazing. And then the second mod is Reload Shield. When a shield is active, reloading grants you 1,072 points of shield. Now this is when I said I have some mods that are going to allow me to keep increasing my shield capacity. This is one of them. So whenever I reload every 5 seconds, it's going to give me more shield. So if I'm running away or I'm in a panic situation and I don't always keep track of when I proc my last reload or whatever, but sometimes it comes in very clutch because it allows me to get more shields, which might save my life or save my health bar, because Trickster really doesn't have a way. I mean, killing enemies in close range does heal you, but mainly you just want to keep your shields active as long as possible, and this is one of the ways you can do so. Onto my gloves, the first mod I have is Long Range. Time Rift triples the skill's range. Now honestly, if you're going to use Time Rift, in my opinion, this mod is a must-have, because without it, the range is really short. Unless you're going to be close and personal all the time, I think that having Long Range mod is so necessary for this skill, because it allows you to stay a little bit far back, and then especially if you're using the one that inflicts vulnerability, you can just use this, keep inflicting vulnerability, pretty much keep debuffing the enemy over and over again from pretty safe ranges, and then you can go in close for your hunt to prey, do some damage, and then get out. So having this increase the range, it is amazing. The second mod I have is Time Crack. Time Rift, enemies affected by this skill have both their armor and resistance decreased by 25% for 5 seconds. So not only are they getting affected by vulnerability, which means they're taking 25% more damage, every time they get hit by Time Rift, their armor and resistance is decreased by 25%, thus making them take even more damage. So whenever I use Time Rift, pretty much all the enemies that are hit by that are just going to take crazy amounts of damage, and it feels awesome. And lastly, onto my boots, we're using Strong Slice. Temporal Blade increases skill's damage by 2,898, so pretty much 2,900 damage. This pretty much just increases my burst damage with the skill. I have 2 charges of it, so I can use both of them on a boss, or if I'm getting sword, use one, use another one to clear out all the ads. It is a fantastic mod. And then we're also using Phantom Dash. This is one of my favorite mods in the game. During combat, your default roll is replaced with Phantom Dash, which enables you to quickly pass through enemies. So it's like a blink ability. You phase around and you're not going to take any damage. If you're getting swarmed, you can pretty much blink through the enemies and keep running away. It is fantastic for the Trickster because the Trickster is all about moving around, getting in and out, and doing damage. So this just adds to that playstyle, adds to the power of fantasy, and honestly, this has saved my life in so many situations because it allows me to get out when I'm getting swarmed, or if there's a damage, like an attack coming from a boss or something like that, I can, if I'm not able to get out of the little red zone it's afflicted by, I can just use this and just dash out of the way, or just completely phase out and just the attack is just gonna miss me completely. So I absolutely love this mod. And boys, my fashion is not there yet. Don't worry, right now I'm just focusing on the armor pieces. I'm not really worried about the, fashion. This honestly doesn't even go with like the whole Trickster's theme, but I'm pretty sure later on the legendaries and stuff, and maybe just some other purple pieces of gear, there's probably some way cool looking pieces. I mean, the headpiece is pretty cool, but other than that, like, I feel like this doesn't really vibe with the Trickster that well. But don't worry, I'm definitely gonna have my fashion looking better in the future. The Trickster is definitely a class that will thrive in the end game. Much like the Pyromancer, for myself, I wasn't having that much fun until I unlocked some more skills and got some mods going. But once I did get those mods going and unlock those skills, wow, is the Trickster so much fun, and it's actually really powerful. And especially even later on, once you start getting some legendary gear and some legendary mods, there's some set pieces that allow you to do some crazy things. Like one of them is every enemy hit with Venator's Knife, you use Hunt the Prey and it doesn't activate your cooldown. So you can just keep teleporting behind all the enemies that are marked with Venator's Knife for free, no cooldown on your Hunt the Prey ability. And that sounds fantastic. So I think the Trickster is definitely better suited for later on in the game. At first, not too good, but when you start building a build, it just opens up so many different play styles and unlocks so many more potential for damage and all kinds of things. Like with this build, I can use my Time Rift, lift them up in the air, it weakens them, inflicts vulnerability, reduces their armor and resistance, and you can just go crazy. Not to mention, every time I do activate a deception skill, I get shields back, and I can reload, get more shields. Every time I have shield active, it releases like this lightning shockwave around me, keeping me safe. Then by then, I have another deception skill, another Time Rift ability active. I can just send out another wave, inflict more vulnerability, weaken them with the armor and resistance. It's just a constant change of weakening, getting shields back, using the lightning, and all kinds of things. It's awesome. So if any of you are kind of curious about what the Trickster can get into, or if you're not really liking it at first, just stick it out, wait until you get some more mods and then eventually some legendary gear, because it really opens up. Definitely stick with the Trickster because I think it's going to be fantastic later on in the game when you need a lot of crowd control and you need to be able to get in and out very fast, and that's what the Trickster specializes in. He's able to get in, do his damage, and leave pretty safely. So definitely try the Trickster, stick it out, and let me know what you guys think. But if you guys like this content, please like, subscribe, and share. It truly helps me out a lot. You can also check out my other videos. Links are in the description below. I have a lot of crazy builds, so go ahead and check that out. And you might as well follow my social media. I have a Twitter and an Instagram, both at @fat_bloonskis. But with all that being said, deuces.